We want to say, top of the evening, thank you for joining us for Live State of Affairs. We're here with the out of how many members is it? 13 women in the Progressive Labour Party on this specific campaign, election 2025. We're going to start with the Attorney General, Kim Wilkerson. Welcome.
Thank you, Trevor.
How are you this evening?
I'm fantastic.
We're in your neck of the woods.
We are.
Well, up in Somerset. Tell us, how's it been on the campaign trail?
People who are listening should know, or if they don't know, I am contesting C23. That is Paget West, which has historically been an OBA, UBP stronghold. Mm-hmm. And the conversations have been interesting on the campaign trail. It's really rich conversations. I think maybe people feel they've been taken for granted a little bit there. I just think, people want to be represented.
How's it been? What type of challenges have you come up with?
You mean actually getting out?
Yes.
Or with the feedback?
With the feedback and the communications.
The big challenge is, as my friend Crystal Caesar says, it's 1,244 of them and one of me. And that's the challenge. So the challenge is if you could duplicate yourself or replicate yourself several times over, you could get it done, because people do want to have conversations. This is not stepping up on the doorstep and it's a casual, how are you doing? Are you planning to vote? We are having deep conversations about a number of things. I mean, I've heard fully articulated proposals for, solutions. And that's the beauty of what I've been hearing. I have, there are some people who complain, but by and large, people are interested in offering solutions to the problems of the country.
Joining Minister, Attorney General is first time, Joanne Ball. Yes. Take the mic, Joanne, and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanne Ball, Burgess. I am contesting for C25, Warwick Northeast.
Tell us, what's the experience been like thus far?
During my rollout speech, I said I will start canvassing that night, and I kept my promise. As you know, I joined the race rather late. And since then, it's been a walk of faith, a labor of love. As Kim said, it's one of me and over 1,000 of them, but I've been getting on the doorsteps and hearing beautiful conversations and expressions of need, where the seniors are letting me know what supports they would like in C25. There's also people have spoken about concerns over safety and what we can do about gang violence, and beautiful proposals. Like you said, people have solutions and people are working in the community to do their part to make C25 a better place. Of course, there's concerns about road safety as well. And just, cries for help, cries to say, where are the activities? Can we have more activities? And so we have already taken a lot of notes, and I've already started to work on plans for this. And as I've told the constituents, no matter which way it goes, I'm not running away.
Next up is Mrs. Alexa Lightbourne. Alexa has a wealth of experience in when it comes to the election.
Sure.
Campaign chairman, I'm sure. 2017.
Yeah, and 2020.
And 2020. Mm-hmm. And you still have some experience in the 2012.
Yes. I first supported the PLP's campaign in 2012, but yes, seeking to run for Devonshire Northwest, constituency 14, that was previously held by MP Wayne Keynes, and just happy to be interacting with all of the residents and the constituents who are there. I come from Devonshire, so I'm just Dock Hill is actually where my homestead is, and like many of the constituents know my grandfather, Pommy Lightbourne, and so it's almost a reunion of sorts insofar as engaging with people who would either know me or we would hang out in the neighborhood together, went to school together, and so it's really been great to interact with them and hear their concerns firsthand as well, to be able to best represent them. So it's been great. It's a different role for sure than the campaign manager, but it's really just putting into practice what I had been advocating for behind the scenes, or what I would say to a prospective candidate. I'm just applying it now for myself. So
as a young woman knocking on doors, how have you been received?
Well, I actually haven't had any unfavorable interaction. I mean, I say, some would say, oh, your people didn't tell you that, I'm supporting the other party, and I'm saying, well, representation is not specific to a party, and so should I be successful, I would be representing every constituent that's there, so their concerns are equally as important as someone who may have declared, from the start, don't worry, and even those who say, I'm PLP, don't waste your time here, I still say I'd like to just understand, even if I come back after or at another time or after dark, because you don't want to knock on anyone's door, when it's too dark. But it's been a rewarding experience and informative as well, because what you're doing, at a high level, you're getting the on-the-ground kind of unfiltered feedback. So I do appreciate it and I do enjoy it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And Lindsay doesn't need an introduction. Lindsay's got a wealth of experience as a senator, and I'm sure it's taking you to this level where you are. How's it been, Lindsay? Welcome.
Thank you, Trevor. It's been amazing. I would say this is actually my first real go-around where I'm actually doing most of the work by myself. I was blessed in the by-election to have all my colleagues jump in and help and support me and believe in me and continue to support me. But this time I'm actually got to circle back because some of the constituents I didn't meet personally. I had the MPs out there, I had the ministers out there, I had the premier out there speaking to people on my behalf. But this time I have to circle back and make sure that I get to people that I never spoke to. And even the ones that I spoke to prior, circling back to them. I went and canvassed a lady, and I've been to her house maybe 3 times, and she said to me, Lindsay, listen, I don't see anything that you do. And I actually was hurt, Travel. I was hurt. I was like, man, I work hard. And CTN. But, she said to me, you don't post any pictures. And so it made me actually reflect that maybe I need to post more. I actually do things not for acknowledgement, but I guess people can't see what I'm doing. So it actually made me think about it. I started posting a lot more of stuff that I'm doing, but a lot of stuff that I do, like I feed 12 seniors in CTN twice a week, and I would never post that, who they are, but other things like picking up trash and different things like that need to be highlighted more, or just taking time to sitting in with families and hear their concerns. So I'm really enjoying it. Like, I went to a constituent's house the other day on Saturday, and she didn't come out to vote because she said, I'm not voting for anybody unless I hear from everybody. And so we sat there for 2 hours and just talking, and she had so many ideas, and we had jotted down notes, and I said, I'm not trying to be rude, but can I type in my phone? And so I was taking down notes because she had a lot of good ideas, and like the AG said, it's about getting those feedbacks, so then we come into the room and let our party know what our constituents want or need. So I think that it's been a great experience. It is hard, like they said, it's just one of me, and I didn't have a big branch, so getting to everybody is hard. But I also think that today, as I was sitting here waiting to go on, a constituent called me, and she said, Lindsay, I need your help. I said, what do you need help with? And she explained what her issue was, and I said, well, thank you for calling me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I leave this interview and get back to you. But I like when people reach out to me as well. I'm always willing and able to hear concerns. On Tuesday night at the polling station, a husband and wife came to me. They had a concern. The premier popped in, and he was there, so he was able to guard him. Then Minister Hale and Minister Weeks said it's nice when we're all together and we can all pitch in to help. So that's one thing I love about the PLP is we're a family and we work together.
Sounds like she encouraged you to do some more social media. I'm going to work to do some more social media.
Yes.
Yeah? And earlier when you said the by-election is completely different from, this is the big stage, the general election.
Yes.
It's a bigger stage. How are you finding going to these people over and over and over to get your message across?
So I'm probably going to get
in a small in a small window.
So I'm going to be sure. I guess how I take canvassing is I put myself forward. I don't try to ask people, can you vote for me? I want people to be confident in voting for me. So most times when I leave somebody's house, they let me know. Lindsay, I'm got you. So people that didn't come out in the by-election that I thought were coming out for me came out. It was quick story. It was a family. Now this is one of the only families that I thought were going to vote for me. I was sure they're going to vote for me, and so I thought they voted for me, to be honest. But you remember, so many people coming in the by-election, and so when I was canvassing again this time around, she said, "Oh, I didn't come out and vote for you." And they said, "You didn't what?" I said, "I was sure." So she said, "I have an issue, and this is my issue." I said, "Why you didn't tell me?" I said, "Not for the vote, but why you didn't tell me? Because this is something that I could have helped you with." And so I was able to rectify the situation for within a couple of weeks. But I think it's important for constituents, no matter what party you represent or you support, let us know what your problem is, because more times than not, we can actually help you or figure out a way to get you the best answers and solutions. So I think that we just need to talk instead of always yelling and being angry. Let's let us know what's the problem, because we're a party of solutions.
Absolutely.
Alexa, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, your mother, young mom. What's your thoughts on support for mothers, more support for mothers, childcare, and how it has impacted regular people?
Sure. I mean, childcare is something that every mother would be faced with and confronted with once, that 3-month mark or maternity leave would end, and therefore have the responsibility of finding and also being comforted knowing that whoever you're leaving your child with is going to be able to take care of them and ensure that they are they're in a safe environment. And so I think definitely I'm happy about the child care allowance that the government has advanced to support mothers who have children in nursery. And I do think that it could even, we could explore ways to ensure that everyone that is eligible and receives a voucher can go into a facility, or a facility is similarly comforted and will accept it. Because I did find, on the trail there were a few that said that their nursery did not accept it for whatever reason, right? And so I think it's around closing that loop to ensure that the safety and the intent of the policy, which is to provide that relief, actually is taking place. But these are the outlier situations that we can always find ways to, as Lindsay said, problem solve and find ways to ensure that those who need it most are getting the support that they need.
How are you finding during the canvassing, and then you got to go back to your young one, like
I mean,
your little baby?
Yes, and I think it is a balancing act, and that is my truth. I think it's a balancing act, but I also am resolute in knowing that what I'm doing is also on her behalf, and so the time is not in vain, and so what helps the community will help her as well. And she's in school during the day, so I do use that time to engage with constituents as best as I can, and it is something that I knew going in that I would have to just manage and know exactly what sort of support system I'd be able to have. And I'm grateful for the support that I have had to date. And she's not without, she has no wants. So I'm happy for that. She's very excited when she sees me and the like. So it's a balancing act.
Joanne, I'm going to ask you the same question. You're a mother of 3.
Yes.
But you don't have you got young ones that are in their teens and
A young one.
yes.
I have 2 that are taller than I am, and and one that will be taller than me very soon.
How you find it? How are the boys
You know,
finding?
How are the boys finding it? That's interesting. When I got the call and was asked to step up and throw my hat in the ring, I actually asked my boys first. So I have 3 boys, and I decided that whatever they said, I'd go with, because children, their hearts are pure and it would affect them. My time would be different. So when I said to them, "Hey, what do you think?" they were all like, "Yes, mommy, go for it. Like, we're with you." They were more ready than I was, and that spoke so much volumes to me as a mother. As a mother who's co-parenting. My time is so finite, and I knew that I would have to depend on my community, my parents, my friends, the godparents, even more. And everyone has been such a beautiful help. The boys are absolutely patient. They haven't been out canvassing with me yet. I've been asking them. They're a little shy. But, on the day of my rollout speech, and I was watching the boys sitting in the audience, and they were so proud. And I think that's what it's about as women, as mothers, as partners. we get to sit here and offer ourselves to make change, not just for us, but for the next generation. The generation that watches us and says, wow, if mommy can do it, I can do it. If daddy can do it, I can do it, whoever it is. And it's such a beautiful process to know that it's not easy. And they see the realness and the rawness in it, but at the same time, they're inspired and encouraged. And of course, they know that through it all, they're loved. We do it for them.
Yeah, we do know that as children, their parents are the first role model.
That's it.
So you have it. You got to either do it right, or there's going to be some problems.
Do it right or don't do it at all. Right. But then I feel like sometimes there's this idea of being right. It's more about being there, being present, and accepting and loving and allowing your children to express their authentic selves. Because if we're walking in authenticity, not just in politics but in our own lives, then our children can do that too. And I feel like that is a pathway that we provide for the next generation.
Surely. I think just, piggybacking on what Joanne has said, I think that's about political dialogue and how we get to solutions. We don't have to fight to be right. We just have to fight to get to what works, because we care, right? And I think that's, obviously I haven't been in another room around another cabinet table, only the PLP one, but I think that is what is good about being around that table. It is, we understand always that there has to be compromise, and it's not like about winning the argument. It's about getting to the thing that best serves all of the people. And I guess the other thing I'd add is, we've got three young mothers. Lindsay's a mom as well, and I represent the sandwich generation. I call myself the double sandwich, so I'm like the ham or turkey or whatever in there, right? And so I got here, a little later than my colleagues because I have my 90-year-old mother with me, and so I had to get her settled because she has a caregiver. Her caregiver leaves at 4, and these are benefits that the PLP have generated under Future Care. And when my mother came to live with me, and then her health condition deteriorated, I wasn't even aware of all the benefits under Future Care. And a colleague told me, and she says, "Don't you know you can get this?" And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And we don't talk about the stuff that the PLP is doing for the everyday person, And so being in that kind of sandwich thing, it's I have my mom who's 90, and earlier, I took her with me. We went to the National Stadium to take Diamond, the granddaughter, to train. She's at Pacers, and again, I had to have that conversation with her about supporting me. I said, how we support everything that you do. We're at your races, and you get very upset when you look up, you're playing football, or you're, running the Front Street Mall, and you don't see us, right? You want to know that we're all there to support you. I said, well, I need you to support me too, okay? So that was why she was adamant about coming up on the stage with me. And, she's on with you. So this is, like my colleagues say, it's not for us. It's not for us. I mean, we are, role modeling and building for that next generation because we want to leave a safe Bermuda.
That's it.
4 women, 13 women in the party. My question, I guess, is, with previous a male-dominated society, strong-willed men, how do you get through that, break that glass ceiling?
I'll start.
I know the AG. That's one for the AG.
Well,
so the critical thinker, and I can see it.
Well, because this is my lived experience, I will start with what it's like as one of there are 4 women, right? So I think it's amazing. There are 4 women around the cabinet table, right? So myself, Minister Crystal Caesar, Minister Tine Furbett, and Minister Kim Wilson. And not a one of us are wallflowers. So, and I think we are amongst colleagues that when we raise our voices and we have something to say, they absolutely are listening. And clearly, I think a woman in this world, we were talking about if you're not coming correct, right? You're not coming at all, right? So we're not raising our voices just to raise them. When we have something to say, it is well researched, it is well articulated. We are coming with the facts. We are asking for the evidence. When we are, pushing back on something, we are being that devil's advocate sometimes about a policy, and we want to know how it lands, how it hits people. And I think sometimes, to be, not knocking my colleagues, women will ask a different set of questions than men, right? Because we're thinking about some different steps in the process when we're thinking about a policy, a piece of legislation, and so on.
So women's perspective is always valued and needed
Absolutely.
for balance. You agree?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I would say, being a senator, most of all of my Senate career, as being a PLP senator, majority was female in there. So at one point it was Owen and 4 ladies, rest in peace Leslie. But I would say that sometimes I felt bad for Owen. I mean, he could have held his end, Minister Owen Darrow, but he could have held his end. But I think the women that were in Senate with us, we all had a strong opinion, we always had something to say, and he listened. And the Premier as well listened to what he said. So I feel like even then, the Premier believed in the women and put us in the Senate. And, sometimes the minister will look back, does anybody have anything to say? And then we will say, no, we don't have anything. Then all of a sudden, the AG has something to talk about, a motion to adjourn. Senator Ariana Hudson will have something, and I will have my motion to adjourn as well. And one thing that I did respect in being in the Senate is, I like talking about personal stories or things that affect me, and it was always well received with the men in the room. So I think it needs to be more women in the room. It needs to be a balance, and I think that the women, 13 women being nominated from the PLP is just one step closer to getting that balance. So, thank you.
Definitely speaks to just the evolution of, what we may have once known as maybe a male-dominated place, and what we now are seeing is more women stepping up and feeling confident enough not only to, and having the expertise to lead and serve, and similarly hoping, just as we would hope for our children to come behind us and see us and aspire to do the same, that, those who may even be our peers will also say, well, she's done it and she has a young mother, maybe, with my certification, with my qualification, my lived experience, I too can add to that discourse. So I think, a diversity of thought, a diversity of views in a room is always healthy. And so I'm happy to see, more women step to the fore. It was even something that I once said was not for me, but recognizing that there was a need and also being willing and committed to serve, it just landed itself as just a conclusion and something that I was okay to do in the end.
The PLP is built on great women
Absolutely.
from the past.
Absolutely.
I think of Dame Lewis Ron Evans. I get goosebumps every time I talk about her.
Absolutely.
What she's done for women and Bermuda on a whole.
Absolutely. Trailblazers.
I mean, when we think of the changes that we want to see, those in the room who are influencing the conversation need to reflect the community. If we have 50% women in our society, why isn't that reflected? So actually, I feel like all the political parties should aspire to have at least 30%. We're not there yet, but we're on the way. And not just women, but women that represent different socioeconomic statuses, different races, partnered, single, divorced, whatever. But let's see the views reflected of everyone in the room. That makes a colorful society. That means that more voices are being heard. And that's what we're aspiring to be, and that's what we're doing here.
Bermuda is becoming a more multicultural society. We have Filipinos, we have Indians, we have Sri Lankans. Might we see these nationalities coming into this party?
I think anything is
Why not?
possible. Yeah, anything is
Why
possible.
not?
Sure.
Absolutely.
We're a progressive Labour Party, so we
Exactly.
ought to progress. Yes.
Good stuff. I have my mentor here that's sitting on the side. I hope you don't mind if he asks us 1 or 2 questions.
Sure.
So I interesting discussion. I have 2 things. Why would I choose you on voting day? Because that's what we're talking about. You have opponents. Why you and not your opponent? Yes?
So I say vote for Lindsay Simmons because I feel I'm grassroots, and I am not afraid to roll up my sleeves. And I'm a worker. I'm not one that's just going to come around for a vote. I am a problem solver. I am a dream maker. I believe in our future. I believe in our seniors and everybody in between. I believe in being inclusive. I believe in the LGBT.
That's right.
I want to say it wrong, but honestly, I believe that it's a place for everybody, and I believe that we need people that's going to step up for anybody. Whether you support me as a PLP candidate, I have people that have told me that they're going to vote for me not because of my party, but because of who I am as a person. So I believe that voting for me will assure that C10 is well represented, not just the Shelley Bay stretch, but all of C10. And right now, I feel that's what's happening in C10. A segment of C10 is being represented because that's who voted for them. But I go anywhere and speak to anybody because I believe that if you get the concerns or you get the accolades, it all comes together to make C10 and Bermuda a better place. If you could keep your constituents happy, then it's less to complain about. Things that were asked to be done by the previous MP, not the one now, for 20 years, didn't get done. And from when I started representing as a PLP representative, things are getting done. And you could put whatever tweet you want about me, whatever WhatsApp you want to send around about me, but I'm changing that community every day by doing the work. So that's why you should vote for me.
All right. In any order.
Yeah. Okay.
Why you?
Sure. I am a servant at my core. You know, I am passionate about Bermuda. I'm passionate about seeing Bermudians evolve, have access to resources, access to success, and access to the things that maybe they have not even imagined for themselves. But I see myself as a conduit to facilitate those needs for them. I've been behind the scenes, and a lot of the things that persons may have, been benefited from or see as a PLP accomplishment, I would have been in the weeds to ensure that some of the foundational elements have been secured and done. And I'm, like Lindsay said, I'm a roll up the sleeves, do anything type of person. A couple of days ago, a constituent had some trash, and I'm there. They're like, "You're in your workplace." I'm like, "Yeah, but we got to get the stuff out." I don't care, and so people often will conclude what they believe of you or what they think of you based on perhaps one interaction with you. But I just have so many different sides, and I think that that diversity, I have a breadth of experience working in process improvement, which helps me to also apply ways that we can ensure that those policies that the PLP has successfully begun can be thought about differently, around the table, and bring a different perspective to ensuring that our intention for every policy actually reaches, the end user, the person who is the recipient of it. So to vote for Alexa, first of all, absolutely vote, because I hear a lot of persons who are a little on the fence about voting generally, and I'm passionate about voting, period. But beyond voting, I think you would get a representative that will represent their needs, and also be able to build on the successes in that constituency to ensure that they are represented, engagement throughout the time, not just when it's election time, but throughout the breadth of the tenure. And I look forward to representing differently. I really do. And I've heard different things. I have ideas. I'm in to do things that are unconventional or new, never done in the Bermuda landscape, maybe learned from my experience working in some of the other islands. But it is something that I, hold in my toolkit that I can evolve and apply to successfully represent those who are there.
All right. Born and raised in Warwick, Orchard, Brown Lane, right next to constituency C25. C25 was a cover for me, a haven for me. I attended vacation Bible school at Bright Temple, rode my bike and roller skated up and down Spring Hill, skinned my knees a couple of times. That's my home. That's my area. And although I've lived in 4 different countries, everyone knows that. But coming back to Bermuda, I have a global perspective and local love for our country. To vote for me is to choose someone that wants to see us all rise together. Like Lindsay said, I'm for everybody. I am a proud ally, and if the grocery prices rise, let's put it this way. It doesn't just affect the constituents, it affects me too. If the economy is not good, it affects me too. You are voting for someone that, let me just put it this way, I'm for the people, I'm not for the spreadsheets. We're gonna make solutions. We're gonna make things happen. I want to know what your needs are and how can we work together, thinking out of the box, thinking in different ways. Whatever your needs are, that's what I want to do. I want to be there for you. So to vote for me is to vote for someone who's grassroots, who has ideas, who has innovation, who cares. I'm a real person with real solutions, so let's get to work.
Sure. Let's get a little microphone over here. I probably don't need it though. So I think the question is, why me and not the other guy as it relates to C23? As I said earlier, I've done as much canvassing as I can, and there's a lot that I haven't, a lot of people I haven't been able to see. I haven't been able to get to their doorstep. But for the people that I have talked to, I have met people who, the one thing that I've gotten in common from all of them is that they feel unrepresented. The issues that they have, like Lindsay said, these are issues that have gone on for years, and not being able to, I didn't know that there was, upset about the fact that the ferry doesn't stop at Lower and Hudson's Ferry anymore. I never heard the representative from C23 who currently sits in the House raise that as an issue. He might have, but I never heard it. So certainly, the things that I'm hearing on the doorstep are things that people are saying they have not been able to carry their concerns to someone who will make those concerns heard, who has the seat and the job to do it. And I'm saying that I will. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes sitting down in front of some of these families, they ask the same question. They say, and it's a grilling, really. Well, what are you going to bring? And I'll say, you know what? I do legislation. That is what I do, right? We know that the dynamics in the House currently, with such a strong PLP majority, has meant that most of the legislation that we bring will likely pass. But that does not stop the OBA or the leader of the OBA, who happens to be my counterpart in this race, from bringing a private member's bill. I haven't seen any evidence of one. So that is what people need to, how are they being represented already? That's the only question. And if they feel they're being adequately represented, fine, they can keep voting for them. But if they want to change and if they want to have their concerns and voices heard, vote for me.
So what do you see, each of you, what do you see as the most pressing issue in Bermuda today that, if tackled, will make a real difference? What do you see as that issue?
This has got the mic.
Yeah, if we start right here, it's the social fabric. And we have some definite holes in the social fabric of our country that must be mended. And those result in things like, this is why we have gang violence, right? We have unresolved trauma that exists amongst families and young people, and we must find a way to address that. Because fixing that is how we fix the good for everyone. I mean, as Joanne said, so you could sit over here and have your stock. You could sit here and have your huge house and your yacht. But I mean, if you were in a place where you can't go outside because you're concerned about gang violence, right? And people who live in my constituency, they may have very lovely homes in Paget, but they're also close to where there's been gun violence. And this is a concern for them. So it's not like it's not a black people's problem. It's everybody's problem. And I think if we can get to these core issues of the social fabric, ensuring that there is a proper safety net, ensuring that every family has what it needs to be able to care for its children. We live in this place of an ongoing inequity, and this is Black History Month, but we know the historical basis upon which that has happened, right? So what that means is that there's all this talk about the education system, right? I get it. That we hear that on the doorstep as well. But you know what? The child who has to wake up and be out of the house at 6:30, getting on the school minibus to wait somewhere before he gets to go to school, and is tired because by the time he gets collected in the evening, because his mom has 2 jobs, he's not getting adequate rest. There may not be anybody to see that he does his homework, right? So it's not just about what happens at school. It's about how we're caring for the whole of society and our most vulnerable. And so that is it. We've got to fix that. Get to the front of the problems in terms of preventative measures, thinking differently. And I think, teaching kids effective decision-making models is important. But I mean, people have to feel valued. And that, unfortunately, isn't happening as well as it could be. There's a lot to be done.
Train. How early in the process should we be addressing that?
Right away.
I know I was raised in an environment where we were community-based. You know, in Dock Hill, you know, we knew that our neighbors were watching. We knew that there was a vigilance that was, you know, should your mother not be there, or in the season of time that she, you know, baby transitioning from work to the home. We knew that there were other eyes in the community that were concerned, and also, you know, made you their responsibility, but also not from a place of burden, but from a place of concern and doing their part as a part of that village. And to the 80s point, I too on the doorstep, that is a consistent theme. You know, they say, I don't know my neighbors, or, you know, and they yearn for that. And I, you know, even in the Prospect area specifically, I remember, you know, going there and visiting other friends, and that's what we remember it being, and we were the successful beneficiaries and the products of that village mentality. And so I think the individualism that has actually creeped into our society, where we're only concerned about us, we're only concerned about, you know, what is best for me right now, is actually, you know, stands to divide us and stands to be a catalyst for, you know, disconnect. And then you're not concerned if the other children are, you know, cared for, or have milk, or have things that you know that they may need access to. So it requires us to step outside of our most immediate needs, knowing that doing so represents their part in what is the community, what is our ecosystem. And it really only stands to yield positive and beneficial results for us all in Bermuda.
Basically, like I said, I think from birth, to answer your question, I think that this government has moved in the right direction with the child daycare allowance and expanding it so more people could receive it. I feel that if we start early from birth and we give our children the best start, laying that foundation is fundamental. When we do that, we're giving our children the right start, but also, I know my daughter went Happy Valley. One thing that they taught us then as parents, because you think you know that all, but they taught us community service for those that didn't know. They taught us different things. So I think that we need to go back to basics, bring things back a bit, and learn that, like Alexa said, our neighbors. We need to know who our neighbors are. We need to know who our children are playing with. We actually need to get our children out of the houses more, because they're inside, looking at video games. Like my sister just had a baby, and she refuses, and he likes all these songs and music. And I'm like, hey girl, let him watch it. She said, nope, my child's not going to be stuck on watching the screen time. And his wife, they said, no, girl, it's all right. She said she's adamant that he doesn't do that. She doesn't want to raise a child that doesn't know what it feels like to play outside. Or like she said, scrape your knee. You know, my daughter as well, I'm like, come on, you got to go outside. She doesn't have any neighborhood children to play with because everybody's stuck inside. So I think we need to go back to basics and start with our children from a young age and raise our children how we were raised. I think Bermuda was such a better place when we went back to the village raising our children.
Go on, Joanne.
I want to go back to the question about the most pressing issues. It's hard to name one because I feel like they all affect each other. But what I want to focus on is cost of living and education. We know that everybody should be able to maintain the standard of living that they desire within reason from their job and not have to work 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. And it's not just a Bermuda problem, it's a worldwide problem. And we know this, it's not a PLP problem, it's a systemic problem. It's an inequity problem that has snowballed. So let's not do that thing, right? So I love the way that we're moving the direction to support those who are vulnerable, whether it's the seniors, the youth, or the children. And PLP has always been a labor party, and being a labor party, the concern for the people. Now, strategic planning means that you may not see the fruits right this second, but it means that that tide is turning. If you've had inequity for generations and generations and generations, and now for the last 10, 13, even 20 years, that tide has started to turn, you may not see the fruits how you want it right there, because there's so much in the historical situation that has not been rectified. So I want people to remember that we're dealing with lots of history in Bermuda and a lot of areas where things have not been reformed, and we've put Band-Aids on things, and because of a pandemic, a lot of those Band-Aids have been ripped off, and we're dealing with that now. And I encourage everyone not to blame a government or a person, but to remember the historical context that we came from and realize that we are moving towards something that is equitable for all of us. Having said that, with cost of living, we must educate our youth, because they are the future, and the future is now. And education is my background, as you know, and there's a lot being said of education and education reform, and I was privileged and honored and blessed to have a front row seat in working in education reform. And the thing about that is, of course, we can learn from our mistakes, and we can say, yes, we could have done A and B and not C, and I believe that's why that's a phased approach, and that's not, I believe the urgency of needing to reform our education system, perhaps things, we've made quick decisions along the way, but the point of the matter is we need reform. We know our education system started from inequity. Our youngest primary school building is 60 years old? And as we educate the young people, then we start to rise, critical thinking, allowing them to have choice and an agency in their education. That's where we're going. That's where we are in some respects. And I encourage Bermudians and everyone to actually read up on it. Because this idea about the Education Authority, let me just say that for a second. I need to try to pivot for a minute. I'm sorry. The Education Authority is not a new idea. It's been in the PLP's process for a very long time. You just gotta go Google it, go look up on Learning First. Just gotta look. And so and there is an Education Authority working group that is comprised mostly of local Bermudians who are working and refining and have been working and refining that structure. And I encourage everyone, instead of always looking at things, could be better, and we're working on things, and things are, slowly starting to pivot, although there are challenges. But let's support the education of our children, because it's not necessarily just a government's business. It is everyone's business. Parents, staff, community people, business owners, get involved. It is all of our business. When Finland decided to transform their education system, they looked and said, what do our people need? And as a country, they came together and worked in that direction. Bermuda, we need to do this. We need to come together for our youth, so that they can grow and so that they can have a better future. And as they grow, then we'll see something different. We can no longer stand by from the statements of yesterday that we will only educate some, because we don't want those other ones to be educated too much, because they might upset the economic status of some others. We're past that. We need everyone to rise together so that we can have a fair Bermuda.
Yeah. Food for thought. I guess I'm going to jump right into, we were talking about gun violence. Gun violence started 2002, and now 2025, so it's 23 years. Majority has been 99% black youth, black young men dead. We are now seeing the sons of those that were murdered 10, 15, 20 years ago are now into this activity. Other parties might say the PLP has been in power 17, 18 years of their 20-something years. Yeah. How do we tackle, and I'm glad you said just how you put it, how do we tackle to really get us this situation resolved? Minister.
It is, as I said before, that's the same problem that we're solving when we get into a preventative methodology, when we're thinking about preschool children first, about decision-making methodologies, about you have to think about the consequences of every action that you take. That is something that we have to be learning early on. And interestingly, It happens, but we don't find the programs being sustained. And so that's one of the things, even in the reform, that we should be looking at, right? I think it's an unfair calculation to say, well, there's been gun violence for 23 years and the PLP has been in the government for 20 years. Who's to say if the PLP hadn't been the government, gun violence could have been multiples more than that, right? So it's not a fair. They're flawed assumptions. If you try to make the correlation that somehow it's correlated with the PLP being the government, what we do know is it's clear that people involved in gun violence feel often that they don't have other options. That's what has to be changed. We're talking about rising votes. It's got to rise for everybody, right? Every young person has to feel, I have an opportunity in my country to first feel valuable, to get a chance at a good education, and if I have issues along the way to getting that good education, that I have some interventions that will help me to get on the right track. And we've seen people turn around, right? And I mean, I know that there's always a question, our gang violence reduction strategy has been rolled out, so I know Minister Weeks is talking about that, so we don't need to use this time to talk about that. He's certainly a big guy who can stand on his own talking about it. But I know, because we work collaboratively through the Attorney General's Chambers, the Ministry of Justice, because I now have corrections, and national security, on how we're thinking about the impact of these things and what we want to see. And again, I think that we're on the road. I think that progress is being made, but there is a lot more to do.
Sure. And I would just say that it is about creating and implementing sustainable foundations. So when we talk about, uprooting inequities, it's then having sustainable policies that can actually yield the results over time. Yes, there are immediate things that our community needs, and we have short-term solutions. We talked about in our recent platform about the trauma-informed system, whereby systems are now coming from that as the place in which they pivot, or the Mental Health Act, looking at how we might be able to reform that too, to provide the necessary services for those who need it most. And so I don't think that there is one specific solution, but it is that, the tenets of a community, the different types of access to care, access to specialist services, the prevention, identification early. All these things help to be able to yield that result of change. Persons even feeling like they're a part of the community also impacts their decisions, right? So if you were in a traditional education model, there are traditional courses, and if you were not successful at those traditional courses, you were deemed to be, maybe in slow or in another category. That's what they would say, and it does not mean that you don't too have a gift, you don't too have something to contribute. And so what I'm happy about through the education reform is that they are now considering a diverse learning, diverse types of learning, diverse interests of our students. And so we all know that if a child is interested in something, they want to participate. And so I think that is part of the formula that gets us to an environment that we're comfortable, gets us to a conscious and a community that is minded to keep it that way, keep it close-knit.
Everybody learns different.
Exactly.
I mean, I think my colleague said it all. But I am the chairman of Cedar Bridge Academy, and it was a lot of backlash about Cedar Bridge. But I must say that we have some hard-working teachers, the principal and the board. We're all trying to make sure that the children get what they need. And I think that because we have the mechanics, and we have the makerspace and things like that. So we have these hands-on programs that we're doing at Cedar Bridge. And I think that children get more interested. You see them excited to do these different programs. And I think it's taking us back to TAC days, where we have a lot more hands-on. And I think that one thing that we have to also understand is we need to be parents that are responsible. And when I say that, I mean that when our children do something wrong, we need to correct them. Because I find that nowadays it's not about having that not my child syndrome. Back in the day, when I was growing up, before I got in, I was cracked upside my head like 6 times. But now we're in a state where nobody can say anything to our child. So I think if we instill in our children, number one, to be good citizens, then we have less issues. Number two, if we allow people to say to our child, hey, that's not the right thing to do. You shouldn't be over there smoking. You shouldn't be vaping. Stop having the mentality that nobody can say anything to our children. Once we start peeling back the layers, then we'll start having more productive citizens. And I think that a big thing that we need to do is show our children love. Love our children. Once we start not being afraid to love our children and show them and not just feel it and show them, then I think we'll be better citizens.
We have a large segment of our society is seniors. I'm sure you've knocked on the doors, you've spoken to them. Some are extremely struggling. A lot of people are struggling. How do you comfort them in your campaign? How do you show empathy in your campaigning?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I'll just briefly contribute, but I know for me, again, hearing firsthand person's lived experiences has been a rewarding but also instructive experience. Most recently, I am a person who wants to talk to everyone about what it is that is most important to them, and a large percentage of the constituency are seniors. And knowing that the PLP has again set that foundation, increasing its pensions year after year, now in the short term expanding access through future care, knowing that the end result is still universal health care, but being able to implement these policies to be able to provide solutions to their most immediate needs. That's how I provide comfort, and comfort is relative to your most immediate need, but knowing that they have not been forgotten, they have not been left out of whatever the future policies and strategies that they may not even be able to be here to experience. Their right now is also being considered. We recognize the investment that they've given throughout their lifetime, and so therefore it would behoove us to also consider them today for their investment then, as we take the baton from them and seek to also advance policies for our children and our next generations. And so I think having that conversation with them helps them to understand and also feel rest assured that we have not forgotten about them. We have the seniors care facility is also another, in the short term, things that we are prioritizing and advancing for their benefit. And so these are the types of conversations that I'm having, and they've never presented their challenges with a view that the PLP has forgotten, because they are grateful that the PLP has contributed in strict contrast to previous administrations. However, there is more that they would like, and they are bringing those other nuanced expansions to our attention for us to address as we seek to represent them.
One of the pillars of our economy, tourism, has over a few years, and more than a few years, been on decline. What do you believe our tourism arm needs most of all?
Sure. I think we need more Bermudians in tourism. I was raised at a time where they steered you in the direction that was lawyers, doctors, teachers, and we had a generation who did that for their children. That was the conversation around the table. And so in order for us to invest in that tourism product, we must therefore invest in the culture that is we must represent ourselves. We should have more of a Bermudian footprint in our tourism industry. That's my personal opinion. It's not prescribed specifically in our platform, but I think the goal of the Tourism Authority was to evolve it to a place in which it could stand alone, and there have been efforts to do so. And so tourism is something that I think is ripe for focus and truthfully, just reimagining what it would look like with people who can see their part in solving that and presenting themselves as part of our tourism product, being our representatives.
That lever in and of itself could revitalize
absolutely
our island.
Absolutely.
Some comments on that further?
I was going to mention, the signature schooling that's coming online of sense secondary middle school is going to include hospitality and tourism as a signature. So already the PLP is looking at it and saying, just like what you said, okay, this generation was said, be doctors, lawyers, do international business, but hey, we need to invest in what is Bermuda and what does that look like? Similar to that Finnish idea, what is good for our culture. So the PLP government has already made plans to say, okay, that signature is right there. If our children, if our youth get a chance to experience, through the partnership with Cambridge Beaches, what hospitality and tourism looks like, some will say, that's not for me, but others will say, I got a taste of that early, and I stuck with it. So having that taste, that opportunity is much deeper than day release as we understand it. It's more like adding credentials to your diploma that they can actually use moving forward. We're literally giving students a head start. So I feel like in years to come, perhaps our tourism product could be something more than it is at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly, I believe it's critical. I believe tourism represents, it is the best of really who we are. And we've seen, I've been fortunate to have a long career in international business. But I think that while many Bermudians have benefited from careers in international business, we haven't had the same ownership of the product, I would say, as we had with tourism, right? I canvassed a Bermudian senior yesterday morning, and this is the thing about seniors, they tell you when to arrive at their house. Come this day at this time, and right? And I went there, and this gentleman, he had been, and you were looking like, we know you from somewhere, and he'd been a bartender for 50 years, right? He'd been a bartender for 50 years at a really, really well-known high-end establishment, and he was the man, But when I grew up, I worked in tourism, so everybody my age, I'm older than my colleagues here, right? But everybody my age worked in tourism, and we bought that background with us when we went into international business, right? The ease of dealing with people, showing our country. I mean, that's what it is, right? When we sell the jurisdiction, right? When we go to RIMS conference or, all of these various things, that's what we're doing. We're selling the jurisdiction. And it's the same thing you do when you're home and you're that Bermudian and you're being warm. We're in the Airbnb business. And people love to come. I mean, they hit Somerset and they, unfortunately Woodis is closed for a moment, but they want to go Woodis. They want to have a unique Bermudian experience, right? And they want to experience the warmth of Bermudians, right? And I think the Airbnb platform is an amazing way for people to have that, what used to be the cottage colony experience that really doesn't exist anymore, small guest house. And they have that, and kind of where I live in Somerset along my road, there are a number of my neighbors who are also in the business, and our guests come down the road from one house to another kind of thing. And that's what people come for, and that's what's so unique, I think, about that tourism value proposition for Bermuda. As Alexa said, we need to be part of it.
Yeah, we become almost an either-or instead of this collaborative, because they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have 110 persons running for 109. 109? Okay, someone popped out.
Yeah.
109 running for office. What does that say? How do you interpret it? That some say in other circles that they are disgusted with party politics. Turn the line, and you really have no say because you have to toe the line. What's your thoughts?
I'll get first. I mean, I'll be very brief, because I know everybody's got something to say on this. But, so, it's been interesting. I have a lot of people that have said that they're not really upset with the PLP. We have no opposition. So I think that we have 109 candidates because there's no viable opposition. For instance, the FDM, they can't make a government, they didn't have 10. So for them, they're looking to be the opposition, to get in and be the opposition. So I feel that we have been so let down as a country from the OBA that people want to come in and challenge the government. And to be a good, yeah, I mean, I think that having 30 was a blessing and a curse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the problem, I think, with, even when we went on to 29, I still think that the opposition didn't speak for the people. They didn't speak on policies that like they should have. They never challenged anything. And like the AG said, they never, and I found that out in the Senate, they never brought in the legislation to put forth for the people or for the betterment of the people. They just said a couple of things, and then most of the time voted with us. So it's not like they voted against us. More times than not, they voted with us, and so that's why I think people don't understand. The ABA was sometimes well, very weak, and I think that that's a huge problem that we didn't have an opposition. Because when the PLP was in opposition, we were able to slam every time. We didn't let anything get across us. So we were a great opposition, and I think we were a great government. Mm-hmm. And I just think that the problem is we don't have an opposition. So people are looking for an opposition. They're looking for somebody to challenge us. So I think that's why we have 109.
Yeah, and I can probably just go right down the line just to make it easier. But I have, I have differences of opinions, even within myself, about the uptick in those who have now come to the fore to seek office and to represent their constituencies. On the one hand, I think perhaps we have made it look too easy in terms of it's very accessible. We've been able to effortlessly engage with those who, organically supported us from the start. And so maybe it has been presented as, it's just this or it's just that. But governance is a lot of work. It is hard. It requires not only a breadth of understanding of the different industries that the government is managing. It is not just about, how many people can I get to like me or support me. It's about, what information am I bringing to the table that can inform and provide, scope, context, challenge, whatever may be your position. You must also know and be clear on that, and also understand the system for which you're seeking to be a part of. And so on the one hand, I think perhaps we've made it look easy. Similarly, I am happy to see more people being willing to represent, because especially younger demographic and persons who maybe would have believed that maybe in my next season of life, or maybe as I get older, once I've gotten, X amount of money in the bank, then I'll be better suited to represent. And, there's something to be said for that view. But I think to my colleague's point in terms of the future being now, there are many things that are ripe for innovation, many things that are ripe for evolution, and it's going to require a new way of thinking to actually implement them. And so I think it's great that persons are putting themselves forward, but I think understanding what it is you're signing up for may be lost in a few spaces.
Mm-hmm. As we know, or having this many candidates is a sign of a viable and lively democracy. And so it's always a good thing when you have people that feel comfortable to stand up and put their head in the ring as independents. In some countries, they would have disappeared. I've lived in, no, I haven't lived in, I visited some of those countries. And so to have a space in Bermuda where people of all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds are saying, I want to stand up and I want to speak on behalf of my country is a beautiful, beautiful thing. When I see those that are actually speaking to issues, that's refreshing. Those engaging in rhetoric and slamming and bashing on social media, that's a distraction. That to me is, you don't have time to learn about the real issues because you're a keyboard warrior. So I think we just need to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff and say who is actually someone that we should be listening to and who is just a distraction. Bermuda, do not be distracted. Everyone who opens their mouth does not have something to say. And that's not for independence only, that's anyone.
Minister, AG?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my colleagues have really, they've said it all on this point, but I will emphasize just one more, and it was Alexa's point of we perhaps have made this look easy. And I think that Joanne has said, when we separate the wheat from the chaff, there are some people clearly in this grouping of independents. I mean, I love it, right? I'm left with an impression that they think running to be a member of parliament is a way to get their voices heard. And if that's what they think it is, I mean, it will be for them, because it's not about getting your voice heard. You got to do the work after that, right? And this is not easy work. Being a public servant is not easy work at all. And if more people, want to jump in and help to carry some of this burden, I say, yeah, power to you, but you must know what you're signing up for. It's not just to pitch a solution. You got to work to see that solution all the way through and work it through the civil service that's going to be the same civil service, whether it's OBA, PLP, or coalition.
My supplementary is, you spoke of a weak opposition. 32-6 has been, you said it, either curse or benefit. But Sir John Swan back in the 80s had 33-7. But the opposition was the PLP, and the other opposition was his backbenchers. So where I think the failed portion was that we had a lot of freshmen in the backbench for the PLP, and they had no voice. So it made it even a little bit more difficult. What did you say to that?
And I kind of disagree. So I think when you look at,
And that's why I asked about turn the line, because you really didn't hear them speak much against anything.
no, I kind of have to disagree with you. I actually think one thing the PLP has always been is a strong opposition. Whether it was the 7 or when we went on in 2012. The PLP's always been a strong opposition in the House and in the Senate.
You weren't around way back in the 80s. I knew that for a fact.
Wow.
I started civics, and I know
So
for a
as
fact.
far as
I
I
know
would
for
say
a
this,
fact that
as far as I can recall, the PLP has been a strong opposition, and we are a strong government. So, but I think that we also have the PLP has always been instrumental, kind of, with who we have in the room, and make sure that we have somebody that's able to speak on legal reform and education and different, we have different strengths in the room. You don't just have everybody that necessarily is all teachers or all lawyers. We have a balance, and I think that this part has been able to be a strong opposition when we were the opposition. And I just think the OBA right now is very silent. They don't really talk about anything. They don't really have any suggestions or anything that they want to do to make themselves relevant. So I think that they've been very silent, and it hasn't did anybody any good.
Yeah, if I may just weigh in, I think to the premise of your question that, perhaps there would be an expectation that those who are backbenchers may have a different opinion than those maybe presented by the front bench. I think we have systems and, tenets of our party that facilitate constructive dialogue. They consider, each proposal. There's a caucus meeting, and although it is not public, that is a meeting for which the diverse views in the diverse constituencies can be explored, evaluated against what it is, the policy that may be up for discussion. And I don't think that as you are in Parliament, you are representing a group of individuals. So it's less about your opinion that actually matters, because you're a conduit for multiple individuals' views and what they need. And so you almost are just a vessel, to be fair. You are a servant on behalf of those people. And so the different systems that would be the central committee meetings where the members and the different constituencies are represented, to the caucus meetings, which is more policy based, legislative specific conversations. Those are the different steps before it gets to the House that may not necessarily be appropriate for public consumption, but that's where the dialogue and the discourse takes place in order for us to get to the policies that we've already promised through our platform and agreed on in terms of what would be included. Would be advanced on behalf of the Bermudian people. So, the platform informs the roadmap, and, we're working together to be able to successfully implement it as we go along. It's not really about one person's opinion.
Absolutely. So unless we aren't going to hear that dissension in the House, that's not the place where you're going to hear it. It's going to be in a place where the public isn't going to hear it. And I think that I think it's amazing that there are all of these candidates. But I think when people say the reason for doing it is because they don't think party politics works, many of them have never been in a party. And different parties work differently. So our party will work according to our constitution, and the OBA works according to a different constitution. So what the internal workings of the party is different for the OBA than it is for the PLP, and that perhaps is for the FDM. So, there are people who may have been in our party who say, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to be an independent. That's a different thing from people who never been involved in our party or the other party, suddenly saying, well, I want to be in the game because I have a problem with party politics.
Oh, well, the fact that we can be representative is the fruits of collective action.
Absolutely.
So we're living in the fruits of it, but yet we want to abandon it. So it becomes very conflicting, and it also speaks to perhaps an absence of understanding not only of our history, but where we are in our, Westminster system and its constructs. At the end of the day, the governor is going to say which individual commands the majority, who represents a group of individuals. And so, but for that leader being disclosed prior, every voter must believe, who is voting for an independent, must believe that their person is eligible, experienced, and ripe to be premier. And but for us believing so, the question is then asked, what are we voting? What would you then be voting for?
Exactly.
So that's the system that we currently are operating in. If we're talking about, systematic reform, then, let's, as a country, as a country, let's reimagine and revisit that at a time and in a form that's appropriate. But I don't think, those sorts of things is...
On the topic of the party,
Yes.
in rapid succession,
Yes.
will the Progressive Labour Party win the election?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely. We have to continue the progress. Yes.
Yes, the progress cannot stop.
I feel like there's a lot of things that are yet to be seen. It's an in-process situation, especially post-pandemic. There's a lot of things that were stalled that get to continue. We still have to remember that we're still recovering in some aspects from the pandemic. So it's almost like we had this kind of freeze, and now we're moving out. So I think there is more space for the PLP to continue and to do well.
And I think, Alexa, you alluded to it earlier, the nature of the changes that we have been making systematically over time are not things that happen overnight. These are not good. We are undoing exactly. So this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And in the words of Nipsey Hussle, the marathon continues.
So I'm glad you said that, because you said 400 years, but it was still under the same Westminster system. So no matter who's in power, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Is that a question?
I'm trying to.
I wouldn't accept that premise.
Meaning the system in which the whole government and
Well, we have been under Westminster system for 400 years. We've been
No.
only
You're talking about the system that we're
leading
under now.
party politics.
Under
Only
the British rule, the system, there are some things that it's rather difficult to change, whether it be OBA, PLP, UBP.
As a country, I think, and as representatives for the
And that's what you hear on the street. That's what I hear on the street.
And I appreciate, you bringing that question to the fore. And my view is that, as representatives, the country should signal to its representatives the types of change it would like to see happen. And so, again, we are a conduit for their wishes. And so I think that is a informed discussion versus us not having it, and then we're making uninformed decisions. Like, we must make informed decisions. So that would be my perspective on that particular question. Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I'll give each of you 3 to 4 minutes, 3 minutes to talk to the people.
3 minutes each?
Yeah, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Well, 2 minutes to talk to your constituents and why you are. And you said it earlier. You are the best person to represent them in this general election? We're going to start with Lindsay.
Yes, so I feel that let me take it back. I feel that getting into politics, you should have some sort of platform to stand on before you start. So I believe I'm a servant. I've always been a servant. My parents raised us to be servants. I have been a servant in so many different circles, and being in politics has elevated my service, where I have people that actually let me into their homes to find out what the problems are. And I call each minister, hey, I have a problem. And they're very receptive. So I believe that voting for me, you're not just going to tell me what your problem is. I'm going to call and say, AG, I have an issue. Can we help? Or how can we help? How can we redirect? I believe voting for me will ensure that your voice is heard. I don't take people's issues lightly or problems. I try to figure out a way to help them. And I've shown that is who I am time and time again. I'm somebody that, when it comes to domestic violence, I've shared my story. I've been open and transparent about what I've been through and how I survived. And still to this day, up until 2 days ago, I had somebody reach out to me and say, Lindsay, can I talk to you? I had a lady that reached out to somebody and said, I try to reach Lindsay because I am in this abusive relationship and she didn't reach out to me. And I'm like, what? Who? And so I had to track my thing because I'm going to delete messages. If you message me, I still have it. But I said, Nala reached out to me. So I said, what's her number? And I reached out to her. And they said, hey, I apologize if you reached out to me. I didn't get the message. How can I help you? And so when she told me her story and what happened, he was like, oh, hey, AJ, I put her aside. AJ, I need your help. How can we help this person? So I believe in helping everybody. I believe in, one of the greatest things personally for me is when we implemented the independent living program. To be a foster parent, and I've been the youngest foster parent when I was 23, to be a foster parent and have children come in and out of our homes, and once they age out of the system, where do some of these children go? So to have the independent living facility where I have children that I taught at Delwood that are now in the independent living facility, and we're adamant that this is not the place I want to be. I'm excited that they are learning how to be independent. Because it's all good to say I'm 18, I'm independent, but there's a lot more to that. So this government is about the people, and I am about helping where I can. Because some people come in, and I'll be honest, some people come in this space wanting to be a minister. That's not what I aspire to be. I aspire to be your MP, and then I could go to my ministers and say, hey, how can we work together to help our individual constituents? And it's not even just about CTM for me. It's about remaining, anybody can call me. Call me, and I will try to help the best way I can. So that's why you should vote for me. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
And Lindsay is one of the most authentic people that I know, literally. I just may just add that. And I thank you for stepping forward, because it also is an example that, for someone like me who's enjoyed being behind the scenes, enjoyed kind of just not having the added dimensions and responsibilities that being in the front sometimes comes with, I have had to reimagine what service looks like. I've been serving in multiple areas in the community, private sector, public sector. I've had a diversity of experiences overseas, working for other leaders, and I bring to that, and I bring to this opportunity those lived experiences that will, together with the needs and concerns that the constituents have, to brainstorm a solution on their behalf. I see myself as a representative for their needs, and I'm a completely and absolutely resourceful person, and starting with that authentic conversation, I feel like representation starts with the relationship, and so I start with that. Because we have such a short space of time, it is difficult to kind of create what you would have it as a standing relationship that you can leverage. But in presenting myself as an agent for their needs and concerns, irrespective of their political affiliations, and that I will be committed to that on their behalf and keep them engaged and keep their interests still top to mind. And so I ask for their support. I know that I will be loyal and represent their wishes well. And I just look forward to the challenge. You know, it isn't about me. It is actually very much about them and the constituents. So I look forward to the opportunity to serve them.
It's beautiful. So I'm the newbie in the room, and I feel very green. But having said that, you know, I've lived in Kenya where I was able to support students with different learning needs, and then bringing that back here, supporting dancers and allowing them to advance economically and just building systems that fit within the Kenyan culture while still learning about it. And those nuances was a beautiful process for me, and I'm so thankful to be surrounded by all of these phenomenal women, and absolutely humbled by it. And being able to sit here right now, then going to Papua New Guinea and doing the same thing with youth that were in the slums and those who were illiterate, and supporting them to learn movement and holistic practices, and then being able to teach them how to even use a debit card, you know, and those who could not read would go with a buddy and, you know, get used to using a debit card so they could actually start to build savings. I've come back to my own country with all of that experience and having even survived a terrorist attack, and saying, I'm willing to serve and to be here and to listen and to learn. I come as myself. I come as somebody who is real, who what you see is absolutely what you get. And if given the chance, I believe that C25, we can continue to grow and to build the community together. We can support each other from birth all the way up to seniors and everyone in between, and start to recognize not only the issues on a constituent level, but what affects us from the national level inwards and outwards. And we'll continue to rise together. I keep saying that. What affects you affects me. I'll say that again. I said that earlier, but what affects you affects me. I think that's important to have someone that represents you who also feels what you feel. So let's work together. It's and I say that so humbly. If you choose me, you will absolutely not be disappointed. I come with open arms saying, here I am, ready to serve.
Minister, I tell you 3 minutes. I know.
Was that not 3 minutes?
I'm man of a clock. Well, I even about 3 minutes or more.
These women are talking, as we all are. But being last and wrapping it up, I promise not to take too long. So I think this is a message, just purely from me to the voters of C23. As I said earlier, many of you haven't gotten a chance to see me. Those of you who have, you know that we've had some very interesting, the tapestry of conversations has just been absolutely amazing. I am a person of service, as are my colleagues, and we heard that coming through. On a personal level, my connection with, when I was asked to do this, and it was like, well, these are the options. Like Joanne, we came to the party a little bit late, and I said, fine, I'll take Paget West. I wasn't thinking about who the opponent was, but I was thinking about being connected to somewhere where I also had history. So my family is from Ordroad originally, and I went to Paget Primary School. I was in that school in the 70s when it became integrated with Warwick Academy. So that was the racial desegregation of primary schools. I lived that. And interestingly, I have friends who were white friends that I became friends with who lived in the area at the time. And I visited one of those homes, and I said to the homeowner, I said, I used to sleep over at this house when I was a little girl. And he was very surprised. And I said, yeah. And he said, so did you know so-and-so? And I said, yes. And he also said, I've been at this home for 30 years, and you're the first politician that I've seen come around since Pat Pamplin. And we talked about strong women earlier, and I just want to give a nod to Tricia Pamplin, because she was one of the reals. She wasn't a member of the PLP. She was UBP, but she was real. And she was the person who was on the doorstep. And people are saying, they haven't had a genuine conversation since they had one with her maybe a long time ago. So I'm here to say, I will hear your concerns. I will raise my voice for you, people of Paget. Some of you have been asking me to come into your homes. As I said earlier, I think it's precious, to call up the person. They say, the flowers in my mailbox, I have your number, and can you come at XYZ time? And I am there. And the conversations from Black people and from white people, from rich people and from poor people in Paget have all been about making Bermuda and therefore Paget better. And I'm here to do that for you, people of Paget.
Thank you very much, ladies. We want to thank you for this live broadcast. One thing I would say and would encourage you, as many of the folks that I see, and you see politicians once every 4 years, can you change that narrative? Can we agree to that?
Yes.
Absolutely. And you call any of us anytime.
I don't know any PLP politician that hasn't been seen.
Absolutely.
We've had a few challenges in that area, but what I've been telling everyone, like the AG said, I won't be able to visit everyone because I joined the party rather late, but on my card, my number is there. It goes right to my phone. Please reach out, and we absolutely want to have more of a presence moving forward. And I'm not running away.
Community, everybody, thank you for joining us. State of Affairs, we're here with C10, 14, 25, and 23. Representatives of the Progressive Labor Party. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the young people of the Progressive Labor Party.
Fantastic.
Stay tuned. Do have a good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Trevor Lindsay from TNN to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor.